Good afternoon, I'm Mike Amor. It's 4 o'clock in Melbourne and these are our top stories. It's official, Melbourne takes the lockdown world record as the virus continues to spread across the city. Also, new school rules on the way to keep families out of quarantine. The miracle drug that could ease the squeeze on our hospitals. Growing problems in our postal network while your parcel still hasn't arrived. And the driveway arrival that surprised two families in the Dandenongs.
Live from Melbourne, this is 7's Afternoon News with Mike Amor.
First at 4, Melbourne now holds the unenviable record of the world's most locked-down city, 246 days under strict COVID restrictions. It comes on a day we recorded more than 1,300 cases in an outbreak that's far from over. Let's begin by hearing from the Deputy Premier and Chief Health Officer.
There were 1,377 new cases yesterday. This brings us to a total of 12,711 active cases. We regret to report that 4 people have lost their lives with COVID-19. A woman in her 70s from Hume, a woman in her 60s from Hume, a man in his 60s from Manningham and a man in his 80s from Moreland. Of the new cases we're reporting today, 45% are aged between 10 and 29.
Western suburbs yesterday saw 352 new cases, which is about 26% of all new cases. The northern suburbs, 42% of new cases, or 582, primarily in Hume, 304 cases there. The southeastern suburbs has really been a growth area in terms of cases in the last few days, and each day there's a higher and higher proportion that are coming out of the southeast. There were 293 new cases yesterday. That's 21% of today's numbers. The main thing I'd like to emphasise is that vaccination is making a difference here. We have seen some stabilisation in numbers in Hume and in Wyndham. That really is a reflection of the huge increase in vaccination uptake in those local government areas in the last couple of weeks. The difference of vaccination is really going to be our pathway out of here.
There is some good news as we edge closer to our vaccination targets. Georgia Comensoli is across today's developments, and Georgia, isolation rules are set for an overhaul.
Mike, this can't come soon enough, with a number of industries struggling to remain open as more and more workers are exposed to COVID and forced into 14 days quarantine at home. Over the weekend, we heard of changes that mean that supermarket staff no longer have to isolate for 14 days if a positive case visits. Now schools will be the next to have their rules relaxed. We've seen several outbreaks in recent months involving schools, in particular our Tarqua College, Bacchus Marsh Grammar and in Shepparton, where thousands of families had to quarantine after positive cases attended classes. But with schools set for a staged reopening while case numbers remain high, the government has acknowledged that system can't continue.
It's about reducing the time, both for students and for the days that a school is closed.
The class will be the most at-risk contacts, obviously, but other classes won't necessarily need to quarantine at home. We certainly won't have the entire school quarantining for a full 14-day period. There'll be assessments based on vaccination status, noting that kids 12 and above may be partially or fully vaccinated, whether they're wearing masks.
The new rules have come into effect today, which is also the first day of Term 4. Year 12s are set to return to school tomorrow for the General Achievement Test, or GAT, but there will be some who can't sit the exam after testing positive to COVID. 8,000 students from virus hotspots were tested ahead of the GAT and 33 were found to be infected. James Molino says we may not have found these cases without the testing blitz, but with so many VCE students already vaccinated, he says it is safe for Year 12 students to return tomorrow. Mike?
Georgia Comensoli, thank you. The waiting time for a second Pfizer dose has been slashed as of today. Bookings can be made 3 weeks apart. The gap had been stretched to 6 weeks to ensure more vaccine was available for first dose appointments. But guaranteed supply for late October means the wait has been reduced. There's also a blitz underway to promote our newest vaccine, Moderna.
With the Moderna vaccine being available through our pop-ups and through pharmacies, this is a unique opportunity for everyone who's eligible, 12 to 59 years of age, for the Moderna vaccine to take advantage of those additional doses.
82.8% of Victorians have had one vaccine dose, while 52.5% are fully vaccinated. The federal government is investing in what it says is a critical breakthrough medicine to treat COVID patients. It hopes the wonder drug will reduce hospital stays and save lives as states reopen and cases escalate. Rob Scott explains.
While the first line of defence against COVID remains vaccinations, the government is also investing in treatments. The first to land is a drug called sotrovimab. Given intravenously, it works in a similar way to how natural antibodies fight off infections, binding to the COVID virus, blocking it from entering cells and essentially neutralising it. First approved in Australia in August, it's being used across the country, targeted at patients with conditions like asthma, diabetes and lung disease.
You're 85% less likely to be hospitalised if you have sotrovimab.
The Health Department estimates it'll be recommended for use in up to 15% of people who catch COVID, with the government increasing its initial orders from around 8,000 doses to more than 30,000.
In some cases, it will prevent the loss of life.
The government's also in the process of acquiring another antiviral drug that's being hailed as a miracle pill. Molnupiravir works in a similar way to sotrovimab, but taken orally, it's much easier to administer.
It is a game changer.
Clinical trials overseas have shown it can halve hospitalisation and death. The results so impressive, Minister Hunt has approached the manufacturer, encouraging the company to apply for approval.
I would hope we might even be able to ensure that that's available in the first quarter of next year.
Doctors say both medications have to be given within the first 5 days of infection, so people must get tested at the earliest sign of symptoms.
A cruel thief has taken advantage of COVID restrictions to prey on a man selling his car. The victim is now thousands of dollars out of pocket after trusting the suspect to take a solo test drive and has issued a warning to others. Paul Dowsley will have more on this exclusive story later in the bulletin. COVID case numbers continue to fall in New South Wales, dipping to 623 overnight. It comes as the state's leadership crisis intensifies, with the Deputy Premier joining Gladys Berejiklian in resigning from office. Chris Marr has today's developments.
Well, the leadership chaos in the New South Wales government continues, with Deputy Premier John Barilaro pulling the pin, declaring that he has lost the fight needed for the job. Now, the Nationals leader, the second in charge of the state government, says he's leaving politics altogether and has been thinking about this move for some time. Mr Barilaro's departure comes after Friday's shock resignation of Premier Gladys Berejiklian, followed by yesterday's announcement by the Transport Minister Andrew Constance that he too will leave to pursue a seat in the federal parliament. Mr Barilaro's decision means the government will now face two by-elections for his seat and that of the Premier's. Mr Barilaro, who is also battling a defamation case, says politics has taken its toll and it's time to go.
It is tough on anybody in public life to continue in this role, especially under so much scrutiny, especially media scrutiny. And that's good. That's great for democracy, it's great for transparency, but it also means that for many of us, we do think about when we end our journey.
Now, the National Party room meets on Wednesday to elect a new leader, but before that, of course, so with the Liberal Party, Treasurer Dominic Perrottet set to be elected the new Liberal leader and therefore Premier, Jobs Minister Stuart Ayres as his party deputy.
If I'm given that opportunity tomorrow by the Liberal Party room, I will work tirelessly for the people of our state. And, you know, it can be hard when you've got a young family, that's true. But what you lose in time, you gain in perspective.
Gladys Berejiklian, meanwhile, continues to keep a low profile in what are the last hours in the job for her, as debate continues about the ICAC and the role it's played in her downfall. The latest is Deputy Prime Minister Barnaby Joyce to criticise the Commission, comparing it to a Spanish Inquisition.
Inmates have escaped injury after an early morning fire at the Parkville Youth Justice Centre. 14 firefighters quickly extinguished the blaze just before 3:30. Police are now investigating. The hunt for a creep who's been upskirting in Melbourne's north. That's next on 7 News. Also, how plans are tracking to get your children back to school. And later, why Prince William has a new career as a TV presenter. back soon here on 7 and 7 Plus. Taking a live look at the city here on 7 News. Hit and miss thunderstorms are bringing localised hail to the Melbourne area this afternoon. Jane Bunn will be here with the forecast later in the hour. Melbourne's staggered return to school begins tomorrow. One of the principals who's busy getting ready, it's Pitzer Binion from McKinnon Secondary College. Pitzer, thank you for your time. How will this week pan out and how are you feeling about it all?
Oh, a little bit anxious, but we're very excited to have everybody back.
I'm sure. Was it a relief to learn of the new, more relaxed isolation requirements if the virus, heaven forbid, emerges in your school?
Well, let's just hope it doesn't, Mike. That's what we're hoping for. Let's hope that we don't get an outbreak. But yes, it would be probably easier to isolate a smaller group than have the whole school shut down. But look, we'll just take one day at a time. Tomorrow, the gash is the most important focus for today.
Yeah, how have the students been coping with the disruption and also the preparations to those all-important exams?
Oh, look, I think they're all a bit anxious and they're doing their very best, but it's challenging. I'm sure that they're as over online as we all are, so we're very much looking forward to having their return tomorrow.
I know we're over online in our house too. This staged return, is that a difficult balancing act for schools and teachers?
You know, Mike, we'll take whatever they'll give us. So 2 days a week is better than nothing and we'll make it work as we've done all the way along this journey. We've got to make adjustments, but I'd rather have them for 2 days than no days. So it is going to be a bit challenging for timetabling, but we can make it work.
Yeah, we've been told that the changes that will be necessary to keep the kids in school, among them are air purifiers and having more classes potentially outdoors. Have you made those changes?
We've the purifiers haven't come yet, so what we're doing is improving ventilation wherever possible. And because it's staggered, it means that the students can spread out throughout the school, and we can have windows and doors open. And we'll do the best we can to be, across all the regulations. I think that with masks and sanitisation and having a lot of classes outdoor, weather permitting, of course, then I think we'll be right.
Yeah, we praise the students for their resilience, but also it's been tough for the teachers too. How have they been doing?
Look, I think it's been very tough for the teachers, and I think that my hat goes off to all of them for their resilience, their flexibility and their perseverance. They've been very kind and compassionate, as they always are. And, sorry.
You're right.
They've been kind and compassionate, and I think that, it's a really recognition of the service they've given to everybody.
Absolutely. You're always upbeat, and we wish the kids all the best in those exams beginning tomorrow. Pitzer Binion, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Victoria's Liberal leader Matthew Guy is with us now from Spring Street. Mr Guy, thank you for your time. We passed that awful milestone today as the world's most lockdown city. You've said you're going to release your own roadmap out. You have the modelling, so where is the roadmap?
That will come in the next few days. We'll do that over a period of time. And the key thing, Mike, is about saying things like the curfew, which we're currently living through, shouldn't be around. We should find a safe way to get as many kids back, as Pitzer has told you, into schools as quickly as we can. At least give a date, which I think is important for Victorians, as to when we can, like other states, have a date where we say that's where we end and move on. And it's about giving certainty back to Victorians, because we have been through a horrendous time, particularly here in Melbourne, and there are a lot of small business families who haven't had an income for the last 260 odd days. And that, of course, is not just the financial loss, it's the mental health loss that then comes on top of that, and that's affected a lot of people.
You would acknowledge, I'm sure, that the only way out of this is vaccinations. How many of your shadow cabinet have been fully vaccinated? Do you know?
I think virtually all of the shadow cabinet is from my memory, but what I would say, as you say correctly, and that is to encourage Victorians to go and get a vaccine. There is a way out of this that is sensible, that is reasonable, that is from proper technology, and that is to get a vaccination. My wife has, even my 12-year-old son wants to go and get one, and it is the right thing to do for our country to move on. And I think it's an important message not to hector, not to lecture, not to berate, but to tell Victorians and educate them why it's so important for all of us to go and get a vaccine. It's the right thing to do.
We were once the most livable city, now we're the world's most locked down city. What would you have done differently to have prevented being at this point?
Look, I think that we should have learnt a lot from the first period of lockdown, in fact the first 3 periods of lockdown in particular, around how certain businesses can open and operate in a limited capacity. And that could have prevented certainly the mental health impact upon small business and kept them going to some degree. We could have kept schools operating as a bubble if we'd adopted rapid testing a lot earlier. Rapid testing now, you can be trained very, very quickly online. They don't need a registered nurse as had been in the past, and it's been approved. So that's why we could have got schools, we could have got our economy going, we could have kept a no curfew in place, for instance, so that we didn't have the impost that is on families on a curfew. There are ways we could have had restrictions, and I do support restrictions, but being allowed the economy and indeed our mental health to be dealt with in different ways. So we could have done things differently. Having said that, I'm about the future, not the past, and the future is about saying, what can we do to get our state back to the position that we were at, and importantly Melbourne, again, as the world's most livable city, not the most locked down.
Matthew Guy, appreciate your time this afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
CCTV cameras could help capture a phone camera pervert. A man is accused of 2 upskirting offences at a South Morang shopping centre on August 1st. Police allege he put his phone on the ground, recording women in adjoining change rooms. He was thought to be of Middle Eastern appearance and aged in his 30s or 40s. Sport is up next after the break. We'll be live with all the details as the AFL trade period officially kicks off. Also, Glenn Maxwell puts on another big show in the IPL. And later, the driving force behind a religious ceremony for pets. You're watching 7 News, live from Melbourne. Time for sport now with Laura Spurway. And Laura, the trade period has officially kicked off.
It has, Mike. Day one and the wheeling and dealing has stepped up a notch. Let's head to Mitch Cleary for all the latest movements. Mitch, have any deals gone down today?
Well, Laura, it's been slow going out of the gates, but the first deal is imminent, expected in the next short while, and that will involve Collingwood and Gold Coast. The Pies will receive 4 picks in this year's draft, including pick 22. That will help them secure Nick Dacos at the draft in exchange for future selections in the 2nd and 3rd round. Elsewhere, Carlton have got the all clear from Western Bulldogs defender and ruckman Lewis Young to request a trade across town to the Blues. Played 9 games this year, including 2 finals. But the 22-year-old is hoping to secure some more game time in the navy blue. And Hawthorn's John Segler has been told to explore his options elsewhere. He's been pushed down the pecking order at the Hawks and been told he's best to look elsewhere other than Waverley Park. So he's gauging his interest. We'll have more in his situation at 6.
And Mitch, what about at the Saints? You broke some news this morning on Seb Ross.
Yes, some good news for the Saints, Laura. Their 2-time club champion Seb Ross has re-signed with the club for 2 more seasons until the end of 2023. He qualified as an unrestricted free agent, had a look on the open market, but has decided to stay at Moorabbin for next year. The question mark on the Saints now will come down to what they do for this year's draft. They're hoping for more picks when it comes to this year, and Ben Long, the contracted forward and defender, is on the table, so a bit to play out with the Saints.
Plenty happening. Thanks so much for that, Mitch Cleary. The final T20s will decide the winner of the Australia-India series after their test match ended in a draw. The Indian bats weren't slowing down, Australia having to produce some brilliance in the fields.
Gone! What a catch! A splendid piece of outfielding from Ash Gardner.
The Aussies couldn't chase the target of 272 in the final session, the captains calling a stalemate. Meanwhile, Glenn Maxwell is flying in the IPL just 3 weeks out from the T20 World Cup. The Aussies' 3rd straight half-century for Bangalore included 2 massive sixes that went out of the ground. The big show finished with 57 off 33 balls as the Royal Challengers qualified for the playoffs with a 6-run win over Punjab. Revenge for the Penrith Panthers after last year's heartache to the Storm, beating South Sydney by 2 points in the NRL Grand Final after a spectacular intercept try in the second half.
Crichton, he's away! Is he away with the premiership?
A special night for Panthers coach Ivan Cleary and his son Nathan, captain of the team, and named Clive Churchill medalist for best on ground. Winger Brian To'o made it a double celebration, proposing to his partner after the match. The Paris to Roubaix is one of cycling's oldest and most prestigious races, but there's a reason it's called the Hell of the North, a 258-kilometre slog through northern France. This year's race was particularly treacherous after days of rain. Italy's Sonny Colbretti took out the win in his race debut, crumbling to the ground in tears of joy and exhaustion, you'd imagine. And Mike will have, I can't imagine doing that. We'll have more trade news at 6 o'clock.
OK, thanks, Laura. A Catholic priest in the Philippines has found a socially distant way to celebrate World Animal Day with a drive-through pet blessing ceremony. Hundreds of animal lovers patiently waited in long queues to have holy water sprinkled on their furry companions. More than 500 animals were blessed during the event. Industries hope they'll be next to have COVID isolation rules relaxed as staff shortages cripple a range of businesses. That's next on 7 News. Also, the violent crime that's put a double murderer back behind bars. And a warning on how not to sell a car during a pandemic. We're back in just a couple of minutes.
Live from Melbourne, this is 7's Afternoon News with Mike Amor.
Returning to our top story now, Melbourne has now passed Argentina's world record for the longest time spent in lockdown. On day 246 of COVID restrictions, we recorded 1,377 new cases and 4 deaths.
We are beginning to see the flattening of the curve in Victoria. None of us can say that it has stopped its increase, but we are beginning to see some important signs.
Our vaccination rate sits at 52.8% double dosed. Victoria's Chief Health Officer has signalled isolation rules could soon be relaxed across a wide range of essential services to keep businesses open. Let's bring in Tim Piper from the Australian Industry Group. Tim, supermarkets felt the exposure site fallout dramatically in past few weeks and they've been given new trial guidelines, so too have schools. How urgent is it to have other industries involved?
Good afternoon, Mike. And it's really important to get other industries involved because the longer we don't have similar guidelines, the greater the risk for a food industry. And what we're hoping is that the pilot program that the government has spoken about, that they're going to be rolling out with the supermarkets even today, is going to be looked at and transposed into the manufacturing industry as well, because we have to keep the factories open. Factories are part of the supply chain. Every chain is only as strong as its weakest link, so we need to keep all of these links open, make sure that we are able to have the same isolation type of arrangements in manufacturing as we do in the supermarkets, because that will keep our supply chain running. We've got 11 weeks until Christmas, Mike, and we need to keep that supply chain running, the factories rolling as much as they can, because we can't afford to have people not working when they really are able to be.
Tim, we have close to 30,000 people who are close contacts. What are your members saying about those type of figures?
Well, I mean, that's a lot of people that are unable to be working at the moment, Mike. And so if you take that across the board, it means that you have inefficiencies being created in the business. It means that you are concerned about what happens next week, making sure that you've got that supply chain that I mentioned being maintained. And so we need to make sure that it's in the food industry, in the hardware industry, in the construction industry, right across the board. We need people continuing to work and isolating, depending on their close contacts or depending how long they've been in contact, or certainly depending on whether they've been single vaccinated or double vaccinated. Because after all, once you've been double vaccinated, the likelihood of you passing on the virus or indeed contracting it are much less.
Yeah, Tim, just on vaccines, you've been receiving a lot of queries about the mandatory vaccinations for all authorised workers.
We've been receiving quite a few calls today about that, Mike, because what they're worried about is not that most people are unwilling, but there are a few people that are saying they don't want to be vaccinated. They're even talking about taking their long service leave, all their holidays, perhaps even leave without pay in order not to be vaccinated. And some of these people are skilled workers
who are absolutely instrumental in being part of the business. And so businesses are saying, where am I getting the skills from? I actually don't want to let these people go. They're really important to us. And I think it's going to become a bit of an issue for companies, certainly in the short term, as people come to terms with it. But at the moment, I think the government is saying it's going to be a bit like a driver's license. You can drive without a car, but it's not legal to. And it's going to be the same in business. You can work without having a vaccination, but it won't be legal to. And the onus will be on both employers and on employees.
Tim Piper, appreciate your time this afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
A man who spent 2 decades in jail for a double murder is back behind bars. He's admitted his involvement in a terrifying armed hold-up, as Jodie Lee explains.
Well, John Lindray was sentenced to 11.5 years in jail today. He will need to serve at least 8 years and 9 months before he is eligible for parole. Judge Daniel Holding said Lindray's offending involved significant premeditation and planning. The court heard he and a co-offender broke into the West Meadows Tavern through the roof and lay in wait for the assistant manager to arrive. Using sawn-off shotguns, they threatened the woman into emptying tills, ATMs and safes of $176,820. The pair locked the woman in a cupboard, but when a cleaner called police, they hid for 12 hours before escaping through a wall.
We know you're in there. You need to come out and show nothing in your hand. We are not going to hurt you.
The offence had caused the victim great distress and forced her to quit her job of 7 years. In sentencing, the judge said he couldn't ignore Lindray's criminal past. He had previously served 24 years in jail for shooting dead 2 people at a party after being asked to leave.
A private plane has crashed into an empty office building in Italy, killing all 8 people on board. The aircraft hit the building shortly after taking off from an airport in Milan on its way to Sardinia. The pilot was a Romanian billionaire who died alongside his wife and their son. COVID has made it near impossible to do so many things we once took for granted, like selling your car. It's also made it easier for thieves and scam artists to operate, as Paul Dowsley explains.
It was meant to be a simple test drive for a Range Rover that was for sale, but instead for a family here near Bacchus Marsh, it ended up being a very expensive error of judgment. They advertised the car for sale online, and when a man called and organised to come and take it for a spin, Kane's steward said he seemed like a regular guy. No alarm bells went off, so he let the man do a test drive alone. But when he hadn't returned 20 minutes later, he got suspicious. He tried to call the man back, got no answer, and then he checked his CCTV and noticed the man cover his face near one camera. And as the hours went on, he realised he'd been played, and his wife's 2017 Range Rover Evoque was gone.
I had his mobile number, so I thought, yeah, I'll let him have a drive. At the last minute too, he just said, is there much petrol in the car? And I should have triggered me then that, why was he asking if he's only going to go for a small drive?
Devastated, couldn't believe it, just hoping that he would come back. It wasn't something we ever expected would happen. We thought we were following health orders.
The advice for sellers is don't let anyone test drive your car alone.
In a pandemic, it's not one of the 5 reasons isn't to go and buy a car off of another person. You can buy a car, click and collect from a licensed motor vehicle trader.
Making things even worse for the family is that when they rang their insurance company to make a claim, they were told they weren't covered because they let the man drive off alone.
The plan to ease pressure on Melbourne's hospitals will have details of how you could be affected next on 7 News. Also, could your parcel be here? The delivery dramas plaguing Australia Post. And a sneak preview into the future of flight. Back soon from our Dockland studios, right here at 7. There's confirmation elective surgery is being reduced by half in Victoria to relieve pressure on the health system. Dr. Sarah Whitelaw is with me now from AMA Victoria. Thanks for your time, Doctor. In simplest terms, what's the decision and why?
So the decision has been made to decrease elective surgery across the public and private system by 50% today. So what this means is that approximately half of the patients on elective surgery waiting lists will not be able to have their surgery over the next period. We know that about 65,000 patients were on the waiting list for public hospitals in June of this year, and probably at least double that, because we know that 60% of our elective surgery is done in the private system. When we talk about elective surgery, I think it means different things to different people, but that's anything other than an operation that you need to come through an emergency department with either a really serious accident or an acute illness that requires emergency surgery essentially that day. Anything else is considered elective. So whilst we describe it as elective, for the patients that are waiting for that surgery, it certainly doesn't feel elective, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't have to be done. So I think this is another, example of how COVID is impacting all of us as Victorians right across the city now, in all of our areas, and not just if you have COVID, but if you don't have COVID and you were waiting for elective surgery, then certainly you're going to be significantly impacted by this.
Yeah.
I think it's a decision that had to be made.
I was going to just say, I mean, just to pick up on that point, a lot of these people could be in a lot of pain for a lot longer than they need to be. Is that right?
Look, the surgeons and the anaesthetists would like to be operating on all of these people as quickly as possible, as would the theatre staff and the nurses. It is really difficult for surgeons to have to make decisions about which operations they will delay. I think this is a decision that at this point the state government has no choice but to make, and they've done it in a way which means that clinicians, the surgeons, will have some control over deciding who they delay and who they prioritise, which is a good way of doing it. But it's something that we can't afford to do for absolutely any longer than necessary. This starts impacting people today, and really it's about resourcing our system so that we can start elective surgery again as soon as possible, because we know that any delays associated with this will take even longer to catch up. They will place a greater strain on the system when we're able to restart elective surgery, because we run at full capacity all of the time. The theatre nurses and the theatre staff, the surgeons and the anaesthetists would be operating on many more people if they had the theatre space. Yeah. So we run at full capacity. So there really is an opportunity to address the backlog other than to work even harder. And these guys have been doing that now since we came out of lockdown in November. They've already been working so hard to catch up on the backlog associated with COVID last year. So it really is a sign that our system is under strain, and such an important message to people to please get vaccinated.
It certainly is a difficult position we find ourselves in. Dr. Sarah Whitelaw, really appreciate your time.
No worries. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
If you've been waiting weeks for a parcel to arrive, there's a good reason why. COVID exposures are sidelining a growing number of postal workers and creating a backlog of deliveries. Melina Saris explains.
Every time an Australia Post worker tests positive to COVID, it creates a backlog of around 400,000 parcels, and this is the result. This is a photo taken inside the Sunshine Depot, so if you've been waiting an extra long time for a delivery, chances are it's here. 200 Australia Post staff members are currently self-isolating in Melbourne. Isolation protocols were changed for supermarket workers last week to help with staff shortages, and there will be changes for other services soon. Parcel volumes are currently at Christmas levels, with online shopping up 30%. The record number of parcels mixed with border closures and reduced flights have led to lengthy delivery delays. Small businesses have spent the past couple of weeks fielding calls from customers waiting for their parcels.
We actually started noticing probably early September that our packages were delayed. We noticed that they were at our local post office and other facilities such as the Sunshine facilities for 12, 14 days without being touched.
Australia Post paused e-commerce pickups in Melbourne from Friday until Wednesday, but deliveries are still happening. More than 1 million parcels were processed in Victoria on the weekend. Around half of those were in Melbourne. Australia Post will hire an extra 1,000 staff members in the lead up to Christmas to help clear this backlog.
Here's an insight into the future of air travel. A number of unmanned planes have taken to the skies for the first time at China's annual air show. One of the planes, the twin-tailed Scorpion, can fly for 36 hours without a pilot. Coming up on 7 News, a future King's small screen plea to save the planet and a surprise driveway delivery bringing joy to the Dandenongs. Stay with us here on 7 across Victoria. Prince William has made his debut as a television presenter. He's teamed up with Sir David Attenborough for a new series, issuing a stern warning about climate change. Europe correspondent Sarah Greenhalgh reports.
This is a 5-part documentary series with the first episode going to air this evening in the UK. Each episode focuses on a different environmental issue, with the first one all about protecting and restoring nature. Co-presented by Sir David Attenborough, the documentary showed viewers different problems that the world is currently facing, like deforestation in Borneo for palm oil and in Brazil, where huge amounts of land have been cleared, including parts of the Amazon rainforest, for livestock grazing so that meat can be supplied to world markets, with Sir David Attenborough telling viewers that we need to change the way we farm and the way we eat. We were also introduced to finalists of the Earthshot Prize, the ambitious environmental initiative launched by the future King last year. Here is Prince William introducing his new show.
The modern world we have built is at odds with the planet we live on. Our planet is now in crisis. Its delicately balanced systems are becoming more and more unstable with every passing year. So for the sake of future generations, let's act now.
These episodes are going to air in the build-up to COP26, which are those crucial climate change talks taking place in Glasgow from the 1st of November.
Every parent knows babies do their own things in their own time, and for one infant in the Dandenongs, that includes being born. Little Finn insisted he couldn't wait for mum to get to hospital, instead arriving in a stranger's driveway. Sarah Jones has more.
Good afternoon. Never did the homeowners here in Callista think their driveway would be used to deliver a baby. Nikki and Steve McRae had no choice but to pull over on Monbulk Road in the early hours of Saturday morning when baby Finn George decided it was time to enter the world 12 days early.
And then we got around another corner and I just said to Steve, I can't hold it anymore, you're going to have to pull over.
The couple left home in Sylvan en route to hospital around 2:30 a.m. They hoped the delivery of baby number 3 would be quick, but they never could have planned for this.
I was, obviously in the front seat, on my knees, trying to get, because I was still fully dressed, so I was trying to get rid of my bottom half.
For the shocked but welcoming homeowners, Graham and Anne Emmanuel, it was pup Cooey who alerted them to the car in their driveway. Telling 3AW's Neil Mitchell program they thought the commotion was simply people dumping rubbish.
I went down and I asked the gentleman, did he need assistance at all? And he says, my wife's having a baby, can you get some fresh towels?
Within 5 minutes of the couple rushing out with torches and towels, baby Finn was here.
Sarah Jones there. Let's take a quick look at Melbourne's roads right now.
Good afternoon, I'm Jess Miller in the Sweeney Estate Agents traffic chopper, just flying from the airport out towards the West Gate. Bear with us, we will check the Balti for you, and then when we do zoom in, you'll see it is running along beautifully in both directions. Similar situation on the West Gate, the Eastern, the Monash and the Ring Road. Sweeney Estate Agents are experts in the West with 14 offices and over 35 years experience. Think real estate, think Sweeney. SweeneyEA.com.au. Have a great night, catch you tomorrow.
Time for an update on the weather with Jane Bunn. And Jane, we've had a bit of hail this afternoon.
Mike, hit and miss thunderstorms are rolling across the Melbourne area, and some of these do produce quite a bit of hail. The city reached 18 in a sunny break in between storms. But when one is overhead, it is much colder than that, and the wind certainly has some bite. Here they are rolling on through. The activity began around 11 a.m. and they keep coming in from the northwest this afternoon. Now, not everyone gets hit, but if you're in their path, they can bring a big burst of rain, thunder and lightning and and small hail. And it certainly is a big drop in temperature just in behind them, only 11 in Scoresby right now. This is spreading across Victoria. It's coming in from the west. Showers and thunderstorms that are quite widespread with sunny gaps in between. Any thunderstorm can bring a big wind gust, but these yellow areas are most at risk, and that lasts into tomorrow. That's the ranges and coast. And with this new burst of wet weather falling on already soaked catchments, all these parts are back on flood watch. Rivers in these zones may flood in coming days. Troughs are crossing southeastern Australia. It's all driven by a deep low that is just near Tasmania. That is why it is so windy once again. But this time, there's no tropical feed, so it is not the heavy rain of last week. A high pressure system will be moving in tomorrow. Then the next weather system, this one back here, that crosses through later Wednesday into Thursday with more rain and thunderstorms. Around the nation tomorrow, Brisbane hits 37 today. That is hot. It is still warm and sunny tomorrow. Lots of sunshine for Sydney. It's 23. Canberra's cold and cloudy, but should be dry under that grey. Showery in Hobart, mainly in the afternoon and evening. And Adelaide is back to dry weather for just one day. To Victoria, there's snow up in the Alps. That brings the rest of us a cool to cold day. Widespread showers over these parts of the south and east of the state. It gradually clears out during the afternoon with increasing sunshine. So in Melbourne, the morning expected to be grey overhead and still windy. Eastern suburbs have lots of showers, but the city and west do look dry. Then in the afternoon, it slowly turns sunny with lighter winds. We'll have a top of 18. I'll have more at 6. Mike.
There's a lot happening out there. Thanks, Jane. And that's all from the 7 Newsroom for now. Peter Mitchell's here at 6 with the day's COVID developments from the 7 News team. Take care.